So the Rebbe is explaining over here the Shem Yud K Vov K in Ois Gimel that we said Yud K is the first two letters of the Shem Havaya. So we know that Yud is Chochma and K is Bina. That's the level of Moichin. And Vav and the Hey, as he mentioned earlier, that's the Midas, the Zayin Midas. And that's the Vav K. Basically, he's explaining that the Mishkan Ha'edus that we're discussing, one level in Avodas Hashem, one level is the service of the Eibishter. Mishkan Stam is the service of the Eibishter with your heart, with your midos, and the level of Mishkan Ha'edus is serving the Eibishter with your moichin, with your mind. That's the level of Mishkan Edus. And that is connected to the Shem Havaya, to the Yud K and the Vav K. Is going to explain that Yud K Moichin is a level in which it is removed from external, from exterior, from outside. Moichin is for the person himself. They're called nistoris, they're hidden because they're not, in essence, their function is not revelation, their function is to be for themselves. The brain, the mind, you think for yourself. As opposed to Vovke Midos, those are niglos, those are revealed. And he's going to explain the advantage of Yudke and of Vovke as we'll learn on. So we'll understand what he said before, that the Yudke and the Vavke is in Midos and Moichin. Yudke is Moichin, Midos is in the Likutei Torah. It says, Yudke heim nistores, Vavke heim niglos. That when it says like this, Hanistores laHashem Elokeinu, that is Hanistores laHashem, that is to Hashem, that's to Yudke. Vehaniglois, that's Vavke, Vavhe, Vehaniglois, that's the revealed. So basically, that Yudke, the Shem Hashem, the letters Yudkes are considered hidden, blocked, not revealed, obscure. And Vavke is revealed. That is Niglis, the Shem Vavke. So what is the idea? The Yudke Heim Moichin. Yudke is Moichin. Chochma Bina, that's Yudke. Yud is Chochma, K is Bina. That's Moichin. And Vavke, the Vav is the 6 Midos, and the Hey is Malchus, so that's level of Midas. Kinal, as the Rebbe spoke in the previous Ois. And that is the explanation of Nistoris and Niglos, because Moichin are hidden, and Midos are revealed. So he explains, look, Kim Bein Moichin LeMidasu, and some of the differences between Moichin and Midas is the Moichin Heim Le'atzmo. Moichin are for the person himself. The function of Moichin is for the person himself. Umidas Heim Lizulosei, but the emotion, the character traits, that is for someone else. Kid L'kamon Baruch as the Rebbe we're going to explain at length now. So here we're saying that Yud K is Nistoris and Vav K is Niglis, that's the Midas. So he says, Val derech zehu l'maylo. Similar to what the Rebbe is going to explain, that Moichin is for the person and Midas is for external. The same thing is the Moichin and Midas of above, the Yud K and the Vav K, that shehamidos heim l'tzorech ha'olamis. Midos are for the purpose, for the needs of the world. In order for the world to give to the world, that comes from the level of midos. Basically, we will say the midos of Atzilus are l'tzorech ha'olamis. The hamochin and the level of mochin, the yudke heim l'maylo me'olamis. They are higher than world. They're above. And v'lochein, and therefore, hamidos heim bebechinas gilui lahazilus. And therefore, the midos, they are in a level of revelation because they have a connection to the world. They're for the world, so they are revealed to the others. That's why it's called niglis. But the moichin heim behelem hazulas, the moichin are hidden from someone outside. That's what they're called nistoris. Moichin are hidden because they are for the person himself. Midos are for external, and they're revealed. Midos are called niglois, the vovke, that is for outside, and moichin are for the person himself. So now the Rebbe is going to explain more deeper these two ideas that moichin are hidden for themselves, and we have the midos once they function. So let's say you have an act of kindness that because you feel you're kind, you feel you have an emotion, a feeling of for the other person, then you're going to give them. So you need another person. So you bring yourself to the other person. You reveal, you give, extend yourself. But even before you actually give, even in your heart, it is because someone else touches you. So it's a place in the person where the other person impacts you, and because that's why you have the emotion. If you don't have uh, someone else, so there is no possibility of giving. There's no even possibility of the emotion working. And as the Rebbe will explain, if there would not be someone else to give chesed, then there is no midas chesed. Let's look inside. V'hine v'lochein hamidas hem b'chinas gilul hazilus niglos. Midas are revealed, called niglos. V'hamoichin hem b'helem hazulus nistoris derhid. V'hine zeh shem moichin hein nistoris midas and niglos. This that we're saying that moichin are hidden and midas are revealed. Hakavana bazehi. What we're intending here is sheklolus inyan hamidas. Generally, the concept, what are midos? Gam hamidas shebelev, even while the midas are still in the heart. Lifnei shemegala isom lezulosi, before you reveal them to someone else, even while the function of midas in your heart, before somebody else, before you reveal them to somebody else. Already, heim bechinas niglos, they're already revealed. Within your, they're revealed. And same thing when we talk about moichin, on the other hand, sheklolus moichin in generally, gam le'achrei shemigala hahaskala shaloi lezulosei, even after revealing your idea to somebody else, hey bechinas nistoris, they remain hidden. This is a characteristic of moichin and midos. Midos, even before you reveal them, are on the level of niglos revealed, and moichin, even after you reveal them, are still nistoris. They're still by level of yourself. As the Rebbe is going to explain now. The idea is, I was saying, the midos shayochim lezulas, that when we say that the emotion have a connection to someone else, it is not just about the act of midas. To say that in order to act kindly or in order to act harshly, you need another person, because the act of the midah cannot act without another person, need another person. We're talking more than that. Not only the expression of the midah needs somebody else, elogam benegeya lamidis atzman, but also the emotion itself, the way they are in your heart, the way the person has, it is also a level of niglois. It is a level of that is shayches to outside. Say, for example, the midah, the character trait of chesed, she'inyono hu lehetiv lizulosa. What is chesed? What's the idea of chesed? Is to do good to somebody else. Ubelizulas, but if there is no other person, loy shayich inyan hachesed. You can't have the inyan hachesed. You must have a zula. So meaning that the midah of chesed needs another person to be mashpia. The Rebbe explains now. A person can have an emotion of chesed even when he doesn't have whom to give the chesed. When there is no zula, you can still feel the midah, the emotion, the character trait in your heart. The reason you need another person, you can't give chesed unless there's somebody else to give it to. But the chesed itself could be there. How come we're saying now, the Rebbe is going to ask, how come we're saying now that midas are for the zulas, even the way they're in your heart, and without a zulas they can't be a midah, but we know that it's explained elsewhere that this, that you need the zulas, you need somebody else, it's only for the actual application of the midah, but the midah itself could be there even without the person. Even though it's explained in many places. That the fact that we say that you cannot have midas without somebody else, so it's only the act of midas. To act kindly, to act of the midas, the act what the midas do, you need another person. Mashenkin, as explained over there, is his oidus hamidas, as opposed to the awakening, the arousal, the midah to function. Umikolshkein etzem hamidas, and for sure, the midas in its essence, even before the arousal, the way the midas are planted in your soul, your midas are there. Efshali is gambelizulas. That could be even without somebody else. And he brings the example. Ukamoy Avram Avinu, say Avram Avinu, shenitztair al shelo hayu orchim. He was in pain. There was no guest, so he didn't have whom to do the midah. So while we say you can't function, you can't express midas without another person, but you can feel the midah in your heart. Avram had the midah of kindness, and it caused him pain because he didn't have orchim to give chesed to. The fact that he was in pain, that he didn't have the ability to give, is because the measure of chesed by Avraham was awakened, was aroused. And there was nobody there. So at that point, there was nobody else there. There was no similar. That proves the point that even without anybody there, but you can still have the arousal of the midas chesed. Why are we saying that chesed is for azulas? And from those Maimorim, it says Only the act of chesed needs a zulas, but the arousal of chesed as a midah, you don't need another person. You can have it. As you see, Avram Avinu was in pain, that there was nobody there to give. So the midah, it was aroused in Avram Avinu's heart, and there was nobody else there. So why are we saying that midas are for the zulas? So he says, "Hareizehu davke ksheyesh mitzius ba'olam zulas amilis chassid." But he said, this is only that there exists in the world someone else on whom you can do, with whom you can do kindness. So even though you can have an arousal for chesed without the zulas there, but there needs to exist the zulas. There needs to be, in the world, there exists somebody else that needs your kindness. So you can be kind in your heart even before the person is there. But what happens if there would be nobody in the world to do kindness? Avo, if in the world would not exist someone else to whom to be mashpia, there would not be possible to awake the measure of chesed. You could not want to give if there were no orchim in the world. You can't be mitztayer for not having guests when there's no such a thing as guest. Furthermore, the Rebbe says, not only these oidurus amidas, the midah itself could not exist. V'serim she'oz lo hoyeshayich gam inyan hachesed etzem amidah. If there was nobody else in the world to give chesed to, then there would not be the midah itself, not only the hisoidurus hamidah, the arousal of the midah itself, there would be no chesed etzem hamidah, would also not be. Because what is chesed? Chesed is to do kindness with another person. So you need, midas need a zulas. Without a zulas, the midah doesn't function. Even in its essence by itself. In the person, there would be no such a thing as chesed. And the Rebbe says, this is actually also proven from that same point. Before we proved the point, here Avram was chesed. He was aroused with chesed. There was nobody there. He was in pain. But the Rebbe says from this, we also have a proof that even the essence of chesed, not only the arousal of chesed, needs, even chesed needs another person. The mezeh gufa she'Avram Avinu hitztayer al zeh shelo hoyu lo lemiha lashpia. From this itself, that Avram Avinu was in pain, that he didn't have whom to give muchach. So from this, it's evident shehashpoa bepoyel hazulas negeya gam lemidas hachesed atzmo, that the actual giving to another person touches to the midah of chesed itself, not only to the arousal of the midah that we need a zulas, but also the midah itself. Why? The tsar, the fact that Avram was in pain, when you have pain, it's not just you want something, that means that you're lacking something. And that's why you're in pain. The fact that Avraham was in pain, that he had not the ability to be mashpiahu, ki inyan hachesed hu lahashpia, because chesed, the idea of chesed is to give. Ukesheloi yeshna hahashpoa bepoil. If there is nobody to give, you're mitztayer. Choser b'hashleimus the midas hachesed. Midas hachesed is not complete. You're in tsar means lacking. There's a chisoron. It's not a chisoron in this idolus. It misses out that chesed is not there fully. So in order to have chesed, you need azulas. So this demonstrates in this chapter, the Rebbe demonstrated that the midas of midas of lev, that the level of midas needs a zulas, and without a zulas, it can't really function. Not only there's nobody to give to, even the Yisairis Hamidas and even the Etzem Hamida, it needs a zulas. That's why we're saying that midas are for somebody else. And now the Rebbe will explain the same thing as the moichin on the other hand. That moichin is only for yourself. Even when you explain, another person sometimes interferes. V'hinei dalet, k'moi shebemidas, just like in midas, gam hamidas atzmom shayochim li'izulas. Just like by midas, the midas themselves are also shaykhs to someone else. Not only the act of the midah, but also the midah itself is connected to external, to someone, to outside. Similar, it's on the other hand by mechin. The fact that mechin are for oneself and they're above of having a connection to somebody else. That's not just moichin themselves within the person, that they are on a level which is higher than connecting to outside. Which means the inyan ha-seichel hu, because the whole idea of seichel is not to give, not to someone else, but it's for yourself. But this is unlike the midas, whose idea, what midah gam in yonam, the midas atzmum. Also, the idea, the concept, what are midas themselves, is to give to someone else. So moichin, by definition, are for yourself. Midas are for someone else, but moichin for yourself. But this is not only on the level, the way moichin by yourself. Elo shegam b'shvil pulas ha-moichin ein tzorich lazulas. But for the moichin to function, you don't need another person. Not only moichin in itself, conceptually, moichin is for yourself, your own understanding, but you don't, in order for your moichin to function, you don't need somebody else. The gam kisha odom hu la'atzmai b'lizulas, that also when a person is by himself without somebody else, yochel lahaskil haskolis, he's able to understand the ideas. He can be maskil the haskolis. He doesn't need somebody else for him to think of the ideas. The hagam, and but that seems to be not 100%, because we know when you talk it out to somebody else and there's another person, that helps you understand it better. Vagam shal yidei ha'hashpoel hazulas nasa hisofa ba'aseichel. Although through influencing to somebody else, that brings about an addition into the seichel. As we say, umitalmida yoser mikulam, that the person said that I learned from my teachers, I learned from my friends, but from my students, I learned more than anybody else. That means that the student, the Zulas, helped in his intellect. So it is influenced by the Zulas. So this is specifically the one outside brings an addition to the seichel. There you need the outside. Aval etzem hahaskola, but the idea itself, kam hahaskola bepoel, also the actual understanding. Efshalis gam belizulas, can be even without somebody else. The understanding itself doesn't need a zulas. Yes, for addition, a person can help. The gam kishaloi yesh lemila hashpia, even when there is nobody to be mashpia, yochel lahaskil haskolos gedolos v'amukis. He is able to understand big and deep ideas. And now the Rebbe brings down another, sometimes you need to think by yourself. Sometimes another person is actually interfering. On the contrary, in order to come to an idea, an item, an intellectual idea, and to fully comprehend it, to stand on it fully, sometimes the other person actually interferes. Most of the wise, they would be alone, they would be misbaited on their own. And that's why, because seichel is for yourself. Another person sometimes really. The Rebbe brings down now from the Sanhedrin, v'zeu shomer Razal, Sanhedrin hoyu noisim v'noistim kol halaylo. That they would debate when they had to make a ruling, so they would debate, give and take all night. Upirush Rashi says, what does it mean? Ishish la'atzmai, that each person by themselves would debate in their own mind. Why? Ki lamed alamitis hasvore, because in order to stand and to fully the true of the idea, to be able to really comprehend it, stand on it, is when he looks into it on his own specifically. That's why Rashi says they had to go all night and do it together. Begam lepirush harambam. This is Rashi says, did it by himself. Rambam learns shekol echad hoyenoisa v'noisen im ben zugay, that each one would debate, give and take with his partner, with his study partner, or with his study of the Sanhedrin. So even according to the Rambam, it's still only two. Harizeh im ben zugay dafke v'loy kulam yachad. This was dafke with his buddy, but not with everybody. So you see that the many interfere. So a bunch of our others over here, the Rebbe explains the different views of the Rambam, but for now, for the first review, we'll just look inside. But the main point is that the Rebbe is making in this ois that the idea of midos moichin is for oneself, and even sometimes another person can add to your intellect, but the intellect itself doesn't need anybody, and sometimes it actually interferes as he brings down, as opposed to the midas we learned in the previous days. Over there is dafke bezulas. Hey, bezou shemoichin hein nistoris umidas hein niglis. So this is why we say Yutke the nistoris and midas are niglis. Yutke is hanistoris lashem elikenu veha niglos. That's vov k. That's the mid niglos. The midos, because midos kivon sheinyonom hu lashpia lezulosoi, since their idea is to give to somebody else, hem b'chinas gilui. So they are the level of gilui, because that's what midos are. Elo shebi yoisam belev leibo adayin hagilui bepoil. It's only that while they're still in the heart, before they function, it's not yet revealed in actuality. But midos, by definition, are revelation. They're niglos because they are for now somebody else. Umoichin, on the other hand, kivon shinyonim hu shehem la'atzmai l'maylo mishaychus l'zulas. Since the idea of moichin is for himself, beyond having it's a part in the nefesh, which is higher than a zulas, than having a connection. L'chein, gam kishemegales haseichel shaloi lezulosi, even when he reveals his idea to other person, who bechinas helam, it's still the level of Mechin is still hidden because it's not fully revealable, because it's not meant. Mechin are Helam. What does it mean that when we give over to the Zulas, it's still Helam? It's not really revealable 100%. There's two ideas here. Shnei inyanim bazeh. There's two aspects in this idea. Number one, the haseichel shemizgale lehazulas einoi ki haseichel shehiskil ba'atzmai. The idea that is revealed, that intellect that is being revealed to the others, is not the same as the idea that he understood by himself. So he still remains behelim. Ukemevur bekama mekoimes, as explained in many places. The hashpos haseichel lizulose hi al yideim tzoos hamidis. That how do you give? How are you mashpia the seichel to somebody else? It is through the intermediary of the midas. So it means the midas are the one that push the seichel to the other person. So v'nimtzo, it turns out she'etzem haseichel k'moshu ba'atzmai, that the seichel itself did not go through midas the way by nisha behelim, means behelim. So number one, even after you mashpia, that still stays behelim. And then there's another aspect in it. Shegam dargas haseichel shemizgale lehazulas, even that level of seichel that is revealed to the other person. Hagilui sheloi lehazulas uloi lifi shenyone hugilus losik. This that it does come to the other person is not because seichel is a revealable. That's not what seichel is. Ki klolus haseichel, because seichel in general, gam dargas haseichel shemizgale lezulas, also the level of seichel that is revealed to the zulas, who inyan shalaatzmai. That's an inyan of himself. Elo shu megale lezulas inyan shabatzmai. You're revealing things of yourself. That's an inyan of yourself that you're revealing to the other person, something of yourself, not for him. Shelemaila Megillah Azulas. You're giving him something of yourself which is beyond the level of Megillah Azulas. Two things. First of all, you're not giving the whole thing. There is still, it only that comes through Ashpas Hamides, and it doesn't get the entire thing. That's number one. And number two, even what you do give, it's not giving something that is givable to somebody else, but you're revealing to somebody else of yourself, not what goes to him. That is the Milo Megillah Zulas. The Rebbe is going to continue to explain. We're not only talking about fully something outside. When we're saying that Seichel is higher than Zulas, it's even the Zulas within yourself. But for that, we'll wait for tomorrow, Be'ezras Hashem. Leave it over here.
Okay.
Shem Koyach.
Thank you very much. See you tomorrow.